Mhm.
Okay. So hello, everybody. Welcome to this section of Salus Coffee Talks. This is our first activity after the change in the Salus committee memberships. I'm very happy to be here and also very grateful for Runak's work and dedication for Salus in the last years. I also thank Shingai for her willingness to occupy the position of vice chair and also Sophie to continue with us. As I said to you by email, Carolina and Pauline are working in the communication and outreach officers. So if you have anything to communicate, any paper or any event, congress that you participate, please let us know. And then we can share it in LinkedIn and other social medias. Okay, so just email us with the information. Today we will have presentation of Professor Diogo. I will introduce him. Diogo is a nutritionist with a master and PhD. He is a currently associate professor of the nutrition course at Unicamp in Brazil. He has published 103 scientific articles in indexed journals with an H index of 27 and is a member of the editorial board of Food Control, Scientific Reports, Food Reviews International, Food Science and Technology, and Foods. Ranked among the world's 2% top-seeded scientists by Stanford University in 2023 and 2024. He has extensive experience in food services, focusing on food safety, technology in the food sector, risk perception, food services management, and consumer studies. And he is also a very good friend. Today, Diogo will present his last published paper, The Relationship of Food Safety Culture Elements, a Serial Mediation Model. So Diogo, you will have 15 or 20 minutes, and then we will have 5-10 minutes for question. The floor is yours. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Lace. Thank you for the invitation. Thank you for the presentation. You forgot to say that you're like my little sister.
Yes.
my
I forgot.
academic little sister, because we had the same
Indeed.
supervisor, but I'm a little older than Lace, so she's my
Not too
little
much, but yes.
she's my little sister.
My old brother, yes.
Let me share the screen just a minute. I'm not used with things. Can you see the screen?
Mhm.
Okay,
Yes.
now I
Okay.
will. And now, can you see the presentation?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do. So, thank you for the invitation. As I said, my name is Diogo. I work here in Brazil at the State University of Campinas, and I'm very happy to be here and share this topic with you. I'm talking about our last paper called The Relationship of Food Safety Culture Elements, a Serial Mediation Model. So let's start with the idea. I will be crystal clear with you. I'm deep diving into statistics, particularly the Hayes process model. So I was studying statistics because I also teach biostatistics here at Unicamp. So I'm not from another planet, but I really love to study statistics. So I was studying this kind of mediation model. The mediation model is a statistic technique to use it to understand the underlying process or mechanism through which one variable influences another. So there are some examples of mediation models. You can see that X directly affects Y, but through a mediator variable. And here a more robust model with the sequential mediation. So I was studying these mediation models, uh, especially because the linear regression is not sufficient to understand complex models. So when we do a multiple regression model, we can only account for the effects of X into Y, but only the direct effects. we can't share, we can see the effects of X1 on X2 and how those effects together affect Y. And there is an important assumption of the linear regression that the X, the independent variables, can't correlate themselves. So it's hard to try to explain something like food safety culture with linear regression because it can't account for all the complexity that this model, this theory has. So maybe we thought that the mediation model, a complex model, could help us to understand food safety culture. To explain a little more about the mediation model, so imagine it that the mediation model is a simple chain reaction. So like I said, we have X, this is the starting point, the predictor, the dependent variable, and we have Y, Y, the dependent variable, and X, the independent variable. And we have the mediator variable that is in the middle between X and Y. So in this specific model, we want to know how X affects Y through this mediator variable. So we can understand, we can underline the effects of X on Y through this mediator. So we can uncover how X influences Y through this mediator. So I brought you a little example from the marketing theory that consumer satisfaction leads to loyalty, but loyalty is but the consumer satisfaction alone is not sufficient to improve loyalty. So we need also trust in a specific service. So of course, consumer satisfaction is a key driver for loyalty, but trust is often the underlying factor that strengthens this relationship. To foster loyalty, so it's essential to cultivate both satisfaction and trust. That's what a mediation model does. So I was thinking about mediation models, and of course, thinking about food safety culture, and specifically the model that was presented by Griffith on 2010. Griffith has published and his colleagues, of course, published their seminal paper about food safety culture. Of course, you know this paper. It was one of the first papers about the food safety culture. And he proposed a model to understand food safety culture, but based on 6 elements: management, system, style, and process, leadership, communication, commitment, environment, and risk, specifically risk perception. So this is a theoretical approach of food safety culture, but since 2024, this model hasn't never been tested in an empirical way. Of course, we already use it, all those elements on our research on food safety culture research, but the model itself was not tested. So several studies focused on identifying or defining the elements, the dimensions of a proactive food safety culture, but those methods were never used in a validated statistic point of view, not the instrument, but the model itself. So I was thinking about that. Then I called Lais and said, let's try to do a model, mediation model with all those elements. Does this make any sense? And she said, yes, it does. Let's try that. So here we are. We tested this model in using a serial mediation model to explain food safety culture in this sequential way. So that brings us this paper, The Relationship of Food Safety Culture Elements, a serial mediation model. I also have to recognize Carolina, Isabella, Elke, and Peter now. They were our colleagues that helped us to write this paper. So I want to acknowledge that. So let's explain what we have done. To test this serial mediation model, we brought all the elements, exception with risk perception. I will tell you why. So we draw three hypotheses to test this model. So this is a sequential mediation model where the X variable affects Y variable through a sequential mediators. So we selected the leadership to be the first element because leadership is considered an important driver in our organizational process because it influences employee behavior, especially in transformational leadership. So we have some previous data from previous research to support this decision. So to strengthen food safety, top management and leadership support are fundamental. So that's why we choose leadership to be the first. But of course, this model can be shaped in another way. So we selected leadership to be the first and commitment to be the last variable in this model. And that leadership affects commitment through a channel with communication, management system and process, and environment. So we had three hypotheses that communication and management systems and process and environment mediate the relationship between leadership and commitment, and that there is a positive effect of communication, management system, and environment on food handlers' commitment. So this is the direct effect. And that leadership indirectly influences commitment through a mediation serial process involving communication, management system and process, and the environment. So this is the model that we test. In the paper, you can find all the reasons that why we draw the model that way, why we selected leadership to be the first, the commitment to be the last, and the other mediators in this sequence, communication the first, management the second, and environment the third. And you can check those details in the paper. So this is the methods. The sample was 471 food handlers from 37 food services in Brazil. We used a structured questionnaire based on Aberdeen research with the elements: leadership, communication, management system and process, environment, and commitment. And we have used the Hayes process with Smart PLS to test this model. So these are the results. All direct effects were significant. No, not everyone. That one was not significant, but almost the direct effects were significant. And more important, that proves our theory, our model, is that we had all indirect effects as significant. So all indirect effects were significant, and especially the total effect was significant. So leadership affects commitment through this channel with all those variables together. And if we see, we can check all the different paths. So leadership, communication, commitment was significant, and leadership, management, and commitment was also significant. So we have a lot of paths that were all significant, showing that indeed food safety culture is a tangled web of factors influence each other. So we can't model food safety culture with simple linear regression models. We really need to test this model, including all variables and all the indirect effects that they have on each other. So this model suggests that leadership impact on commitment is channeled through the sequential effects of communication, management systems and process, and the environment. So what is what are the implications of this paper? That the influence of leadership is channeled through these mediators. So the Griffiths model is valid in a statistical point of view. We know that was valid because it was a model with strong ground on theory, but it was never tested in a statistical point of view. So now it has. That food safety culture is a formative construct. What is this? It means that the individual elements collective form this overall construct. So you can't just change these elements, but of course you can include more elements, but never change those basic elements. And the results of our paper emphasize that the role of leadership as the starting point, fostering a proactive food safety culture. So it can be a good starting point. Oh, I forgot to say why we haven't included the risk perception, because risk perception is a very tricky element in the theory. We have several results showing us that when you improve the food safety culture, when you mature this food safety culture, the risk perception is reduced. Of course, because they know that they are working better, they are working for food safety, so they can be more relaxed, because risk perception is linked to some affective behaviors. That's what we call affective heuristics. So that's why risk perception is so hard to understand regarding food safety culture. Many papers and recent literature are treating risk perception much more as knowledge than risk perception. And that's one of my critiques about those papers, because when you ask if salmonella is dangerous, that's not risk perception. Risk perception involves probabilities, consequences, and effect. How can you see the benefits of the risky behavior? It's much more like that. So we have to explore more about risk perception in food safety culture models to understand this, how risk perception really affects or shape all the other elements. So the conclusion is that the results indicate that mediation model, whereby leadership's influence on commitment is channeled through the sequential effects of communication, management system, and process and environment, and that food safety culture is a phenomenon-based theory rather than just a management system. So food safety culture, in our opinion, can't be sold as a tool, but can be transformed through strategy, but mainly when everyone is motivated and commitment to its evolution. So it's not just a tool that can be sold and implemented in a food safety, in a food service or industry. You have to shape this through behavior, because everything is channeled, everything is all together in a tangled web. So that's my talk. I hope you like it. Those are my contacts. If you want to reach me, please use my email, social networks. And if you have any doubts, any question, I'm keen to try to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you, Diogo. It's very nice to hear from you about this paper. It was a big pleasure to discuss with you these nice results. And then we can see if anyone have any question for Diogo about the paper, any debates. Yes. Irawa?
Yeah, so he has very good, really amazing, really interesting. It's a comment, really. Interested in your thoughts. So I just completed my PhD study, and one of the things I found in talking to managers is that their risk, whether you call it awareness now or perception, was off, in that they had certain constructs in their mind about what was risky and not. And that affected the systems and the management things that they put in place or did not put in place. Did you see what I mean? So is there some sort of relationship there? Because they basically would say, and then because of that in their head, there were certain things that they did not do or certain attitudes that they had, which was then along the lines of they felt that it was unlikely that they would cause any, do you see what I mean? Any issues, or we're actually doing more than we should be doing based on the risk of our business. Does that make sense? And I just wondered what your opinion was on that. And that's something that one of the takeaways that I actually took from my study, and it's trying to understand where that has actually come from, considering that the food service, which is where my research is in this country, actually contribute more to foodborne diseases than any other sort of sector. So I just wondered how that fits in with the, you know, the context of what you've done.
Yeah, it's exactly the same. I think that it's how you said that the risk perception is very hard to measure because they have this feeling, because risk perception is not a rational calculation of the risk. This is what we done as researchers, as statisticians, but it's not how the people measure their risks. They're measured based on their benefits, especially because based on their benefits. So just like you said, when they had so much improvements, they are doing all those things together. They are with so much good practices in place. How can we be worried about risks? We're doing everything together. We're everything right. So they're not afraid of any foodborne disease outbreaks. So this is what we call the affect heuristics. It's how you measure the risk perception based on your affection about it. So they can't they have this relationship, affective relationship with risks. That's why a lot of smoke can't quit smoking. It's not because they don't know the harms of cigarettes, but they can't because they have some affection, and specifically because they don't see much. They see some benefits of those specific behavior. So in the case of food services, the misbehavior, food safety misbehavior can be faster, can be quicker, can be easier. So they see much benefits of not doing all the right process because, and this balance is very hard to measure, some benefits of not doing and the benefits of doing. So that's why risk perception is very tricky. I don't know if I'm clear.
No, thank you.
But I can explain that better in Portuguese.
But I'm sorry to hug the conversation, but I suppose my point is also, though, that doesn't that in itself then feed into the systems and the management? Do you see what I mean? I'm thinking one of the things that you looked at, you know, that the sort of the systems and the processes they have in place, doesn't that then feed into that? Does that make sense? Yeah, in terms of what they do or don't do or include within the management system? But it's just
it makes totally it makes sense.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ariel, for your comment.
Yeah.
Thank you. I guess that also Brita has a question.
Yeah, thank you, and Diogo. Thank you so much for this presentation. You know, I've been thinking about something like this before, and I never really had a way to grasp the concept of it, and I, you know, and even my the research that I had done, my PhD some years ago, I had considered commitment, you know, the various different commitments, and I looked at the model and I said, well, I can't deal with that right now, just because that was going to be too difficult for me. It wasn't going to be too difficult. I could have asked the questions about that because the scale items are there for for affective and normative and continuous commitment. So I could have asked for that, but I chose to not include that. And now I realize that might have been a very important part to have included, because that commitment really would have had made a difference perhaps in the management commitment construct that I had, which included leadership and management communication, and also then the commitment at the work unit level, which when divided up really is supervisor commitment to food safety and then employee commitment to food safety. But the data I had, I didn't have enough data to separate out supervisor commitment to food safety and employees commitment to food safety. So and those were, that would have been an interesting thing also, because I contend, and more research has come out that supervisors have a significant impact on the employee behavior, which why should anybody be surprised of that?
Yeah,
And
I totally agree.
and yeah, and so that was a preamble, and just to support the work that you're doing, because it's clearly really important, and we I'm sure many of us have thought about it before. We just never got to the point where you are, and so I wanted to just go back to the data analysis that you use the Hayes process, and what was the other one?
We just use the Hayes process, but we use the Smart PLS software, because the Hayes model is generally based on linear regressions. So we done a multivariate analysis using the Smart PLS with the Hayes process, with a Hayes process model. So we could use the multivariable analysis, just like the principal components analysis, the factorial analysis, with this model that tests mediation. So it's a very new and robust models to test behaviors. So we use this model with a partial least square model in the Smart PLS.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you. And so if I could rerun my data with this new approach, and that might give me different results.
Oh, great. If you need any help, I'm keen to help. You can send me a message. I can show you the model, the software, and so you can try to model your model. It will be a pleasure.
All right, thank you.
My pleasure.
Well, thank you everyone for that. I guess that we are achieving our goals with these sections, that is to share knowledge, but also to share insights, and also future partnerships for other works. I was looking for the chat, and Tayo and Sophie was chatting a little bit about a next meeting, and also Diogo and Brita. So it's very nice to see the Salus members interacting. And this is our main goal for the next years in the Salus. So just to finish and to end our section, we'll have our last Salus Talk section in December in this year. We needed to change a little bit the day of the section, because it will be on 27, and I guess that anyone would like to be here in this day. So we changed it a little bit for 13, and I guess that Sophie can update the agenda for us, and then we will have this in the middle of December. So I expect to see you in this last section of this year, but we will continue these sections on the other year. And then if you have any paper that you'd like to share, or any project, this is a moment and a place to do that. So just text us and we can schedule a section for you, okay? So Diogo, thank you so much for your presentation, for sharing your knowledge and your statistics. Mysterious with us. Thank you so much. Thank you everyone to join us today, and see you on next month. Bye bye.
Bye. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Have a nice Friday.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.